Hello, welcome back. I am sorry it's been a really long time since the last one. That was not intentional. Things, especially things during pandemic. That's all I got for you on that. This episode we're going to do some alarm stuff. I had to rewatch the last episode to remember what the hell we were doing and why. But we're at quite an exciting stage. We have stuff you can pick up now. So guns, which we already had, but then also these antiques, which are going to be your score. And the idea is that taking these things is going to raise the alert level. And when that hits a certain threshold, that's when the alarm will go off. So there's a bit of give there. And that means that you can have some decisions about what you want to steal. And also taking out guards is going to raise the alert level. So it'll be a kind of trade-off of like, I can make the level easier by taking out some guards, but then I've only got a few things I can grab before the alarm triggers. And so today we're going to do that alarm system. We also have some bugs to fix. Let me just get up my notes. No Fighting in the Gun Museum is our working title. So some commenters pointed out some bugs that we should fix, both of which are kind of funny. One is, so because we made it so you can pick up weapons, we didn't exclude the guard's guns, so apparently you can pick those up, but they still keep behaving like the guard's gun, which is slightly how I can do it. It sounds tricky because E also kills the guard, so I'm not quite sure how you manage to grab the gun instead. I suppose just as long as his weapon is closer to you. No, that didn't work. Oh, did I get it? No. I'm just going to be killed soon. No. Okay, I can't reproduce the bug, but I believe that it's there. Makes sense. It's a real easy fix. So we just need to make sure we're editing the guard prefab, not the instance in the scene. And we're just going to find their weapon, which is this Uzi variant. And that has on it this usable component. We just uncheck it. It shouldn't be usable. If we want something to be usable, we check it. If we don't want it to be usable, we can uncheck it. That's about as easy as that gets. It's not worth writing code that has the weapon detect whether it's being carried or not. Like these are all spawned from the same prefab. It's a problem we can fix in one place, and it's done. It's been a while since I did this, so I'm checking things are even still recording. What was the other bug? The other bug was that the swarmers just kind of nudge you now. So basically the enemies that are supposed to explode on contact no longer explode on contact. That's because the check they're doing is against... are they just called enemies? I guess they are. Yeah, swarmer behavior. This is the one. I'm going to open this up. And they check if the game object they just collided with is the player. And the player used to be a reference to the player's game object, but we changed it in the last episode to be a reference to their player behavior component. So there's a few... the obvious fix for this actually isn't the best, because so what you can do is check whether the game object we hit matches the player's game object. Unfortunately, if the player's already dead at this point, this will cause a crash, because while you can check if a thing is equal to references to the player, if the player doesn't exist, if you want to access the player's game object, you're actually like calling up the player and saying, hey, tell me about your game object. If the player doesn't exist, that's a crash. So we don't want to do that. We instead, the equivalent version really is to do, let's define a player behavior and call it possible player. And we can just do their game object get component player behavior, and then I think we'll just do that. So if the player behavior component we found on the game object is the player, excuse me, let's get rid of that fix that I didn't mean to put there, then we'll blow up. So this is a slightly longer winded version, but I still think it's the right call to have the references to the player. The reference to the player be to its player behavior. There's a load of things we can do with that we can't do otherwise. And having a one get component here is a small price to pay. I also kind of think if our game gets bigger one day, we'd probably replace this code anyway, so I don't want to spend too much time making this version of it, absolutely squeaky clean. Let's just check that works though, because that's actually a little bit different to how I did it in the practice. in the practice I did a thing where just like if they even have a player behavior, then blow up by all means, which is fine too, but it's just a little bit further from what we really mean. Yeah, they blow up on me. And the next thing to do is if I'm dead, is there any crash there? No, great. Okay, cool. Our bugs are fixed. So now let's get on to some fun stuff. By fun, I mean UI. So what I want to do is add a score count so that when we pick up an antique, a score goes up. That's all it's going to do for the moment. And honestly, that's about all you need. That's what a score is. It's just a number that goes up. So that's going to be on the canvas. Remember, the canvas is where all our UI is painted to. Think of it like a transparent sheet in front of the game world, and you can draw on that sheet. But we don't want to do it on this instance of the canvas. We want to do it, it's a prefab, so we want to open a prefab and do it here. And I'm just going to right click here and say create a new object, or rather go down to UI, and I'm going to make an image. When you create an image, it's just a square image. It doesn't actually technically have a sprite, but Unity just has this kind of fallback square thing, and that actually is pretty good for our purposes. So I'm going to call it score. I want it to be in the bottom left-hand corner, so I click this anchor thingy and this secret code where you hold down Shift and Alt, and then I want it in the bottom left corner, so we do it that way. So A, that moves it to the bottom left corner, but it's also means that when we enter like numbers here, we are those are relative to the edge of the screen, and that means, you know, if someone's got a wildly different size screen, our thing will still be in the corner of their screen, no matter what the shape or size is. Whereas if you leave it anchored to the center and just adjust these values until it looks like it's in the bottom left, you're really running a big risk that it's going to look wrong on different people's computers. And I'm gonna change the color of this. I don't know if we've ever done this before. You can click the color to set it manually, but actually if you click the little color, what's it called, a pipette to the right, you can choose the color from the scene. And I want it to match the kind of goldy color. Actually, that's perfect. Of the antiques, just to like create that connection in the player's mind that those are the score things. I mean, there's a lot of gold stuff in our game, but that might help. So now I'm right clicking on this image we just created, and I'm going to say add a TextMesh Pro element or object. That's going to be a child of it. I want it to be a child of it because I want it to fill this box. And so the way we do that is another shift, hold down Shift and hold Alt, and it's this bottom right one that looks like it's stretchy. And that will stretch to fill. I'm just going to have it say 0 for the moment. And I'm going to have it auto size, so it will fill the box. I'm going to tell it to be centered on both axes. You can also, there's two different ways of saying middle. This one on the right seems to be slightly better to me. We'll also make it bold somewhere. Oh yeah, up here. And I won't make it black. Yeah, that's fine. And then I'm also going to add, I'll actually just duplicate this because I'm just going to label that it's score. So I'm going to write the word score in caps. That should look really weird when it eventually appears. I often hit enter to confirm text entry here, and you shouldn't do that because actually this is a multiple line thing, so that just creates a new line which you don't want, and it doesn't confirm it. I'm not really sure what the best way is to... okay, yeah, that looks wrong as I thought it would. I'm going to keep it... So just because this is nested inside the score thing, that doesn't mean it has to be physically inside it. So I'm going to change where it's anchored to. I like that it stretches to match the width. We want that. But I actually want it to be on top of this box. So I'm going to choose this one. Again, I'm holding Shift and Alt. That will eventually put it to the top of the thing, I would have thought. No, I think it's just really big. I think that's why that's not helping. So let me, I'll shrink it. I think we do, sorry, I'm going to go to the scene view because I want to see, when you're looking at canvas stuff in the scene view, remember you can click 2D here and then you get a much truer view of it. So yeah, we can see that the bounding box for that was very tall. I just want it to be there, and then I'm going to put it above, and its color is going to be the same. I'm trying to click that pipette. Is this? That looks alright to me. Does that stand out alright? Yeah. This whole thing, oh, maybe this would be a good demonstration of why we did it this way. The whole thing's too tall, so I'm going to shrink it. And what I want to see is, yeah, that's pretty much, I'll do it in scene view so it updates faster. Yeah, that's why it was worth doing all those anchor things, right? Is because now when I change the size of the thing, I don't have to move anything else. This is already where we want it relative to the thing. If we made it narrower, the score thing shrinks correctly. It goes a little bit weird at some point, but it's not bad. So yeah, that's fine. Now let's hook it up. So I actually I'm going to name these things correctly. This one is I'll call it a label. I said I was going to label it correctly, and then I did it badly. And I'm just going to drag it above the other one. It doesn't matter. Unity doesn't care which way around those two things are because they don't overlap. But just mentally it makes sense because it is physically above it. And I just want to be able to look at this list and know that this is the actual, maybe I'll even call it number. And now we want to access this. So when we pick up an antique, we want to go out and find this bit of text and update it. And in fact, we need to store this data as well. Like, what is the score? We could add some code to this thing that's going to track the score. But actually, I think it makes sense to make score an attribute of the player. We're going to add a variable to the player. So let's go to player behavior. And we'll give them a new public variable, just called public. It's an integer because it's a whole number. And it's just going to be that. And the only slightly tricky thing is when the player wants to set that text element to reflect his score, I don't want to give the player a reference to this text element here. I don't want the player to have a reference to something on the canvas because I'm not 100% sure whether the canvas is going to carry over to the next level. I think when the player arrives on a new level, it'll be a different instance of the canvas. Or even if that isn't currently the case, that might end up being the case. So we don't want to assume that the player on the canvas will have this bond forged that will survive all trials and tribulations they go through. It's very likely the canvas will be destroyed and recreated at some point, at which point that reference will be broken. So what I want to do, we already have this canvas behavior that sits on the canvas all the time. It already has some hard-coded references to other stuff that's on the canvas. I will give it a hard-coded reference to the text mesh pro. Well, let's just type text mesh, and then that looks tempting, that looks like the right thing, but I'm not going to accept it. I'm going to hit Control J, and it's going to come up with some options, and text mesh pro UGUI is the one we want. Couldn't tell you why, but it is. And let's call it score text. And then I'm going to try and get in the habit of when I create a reference like that, immediately go into the inspector and set it, because I'm forever forgetting. Again, we're going to make sure we're editing the prefab of the canvas because we want this to be universal. And so that score number, I'm going to drag it all the way over to here to the score text field that I just created. So now canvas behavior knows about this, has access to that. And we already have a global reference to canvas behavior. So that means player can tell it its score. I guess we'll, no, it's okay. When we define an integer without saying what it is, I think it will just start as 0 because an integer has to be something. Certain kinds of variables can be null and certain kinds can't. An integer is one that can't be. Don't know how to make that logical. It would be a long-winded explanation, and I won't pretend that all of this completely makes sense to me. What we want is I think we want a public function that anyone can tell the player to increase their score. Increase score. And, sorry, no, we need to specify void, which means it doesn't return anything. I'm going to assume it's been a while for you as well and recap some of these things. We could just do that, and anytime someone calls increase score, it increases score by 1, but it seems likely we might need to specify how much we want to increase the score by. So we'll ask for an amount. So by putting int amount in brackets, we're saying, when you call this, I want an integer from you. You've got to tell me how much you want to increase the score by. And when that happens, something I can't remember, I'm just wanted to check whether we use, I can just search for it, whether we use that shorthand. Yes, we do, all the time, great. Yeah, it'll be the score increased by amount. But the reason I wanted a function for this, rather than just having other people modify the player's score directly, is every time we change the score, I also want references, canvas, score text, dot text. So score text is a reference to the text mesh pro component on a game object. So it isn't a string, that isn't a word in itself. It's a component with all these aspects like color and size and font and everything. And we want the text bit. We want to actually set what text is in there. And we're just going to set it to score. And with a lot of variables, you can just do that. You can just say like text equals the variable, and it'll turn that variable into text. But integers, you have to do dot to string. String just means words, text. I think the reason it needs that is something to do with like integers. There's different ways to turn them into text. Like 1 could be literally just the number 1, or it could be 1.0, or and stuff like that. So for whatever reason, we have to say to string there. So that ought to work, but we need something that will do it, and we want it to be on antiques. I realize we're doing quite a lot of coding without testing anything, which always makes me slightly anxious. Let's say before we, so this is our antique behavior, and the only thing it can do is be collected. That's what we want. We will tell the player to increase score. And it wants a number, we'll go by 1. So this is nice because later we could rebalance the game, and like maybe some antiques are worth 3, and we can just pass in a different number there. But I think all of that should be ready to go. The fact that I've set 0 there is actually important. If you put a different number in there, that it will actually stay there in the game, because right now we don't set that on startup, we only set it when we steal an antique. And it goes up! Hey! A number goes up in our game. I actually got to avoid that guy. Oh, he's going away anyway. I got a score of 2, the best possible score. Wow. Awesome. And that is score. I don't actually know... Should I try completing this level and just see if the score carries over? I don't really care at this point because the way we get from one level to another is... oh, you know what? When I did a test of this, I didn't test what it's like if I talk over an Uzi rattling around. Okay, our score gets reset each level at the moment. So we don't need to fix that yet, because I think one of the next things we're going to do is a random level generator, and when we come to do that, we'll decide how much of the level carries over, like how many of our things like canvas and level manager and I don't know, other things that are going to be in every level. There's 2 ways to do that. Either you can have them persist and they don't get changed, or you can let them all die with the scene and then recreate them in a new scene. I don't know which we're going to do yet. It will depend a bit on how we generate levels and stuff. So the next thing I want to do is the alarm system. So the alarm system, as I said, is we've got to be careful with terminology here, because I don't want to say alarm levels. I want to say alert levels. And when the alerts are full, then the alarm is sounded. So alarm is the big important thing. Alerts are the smaller levels. And I want like a visual bar on the interface to show it going up and when it triggers. So that's going to be a canvas thing again. Open the prefab again. And I want it to be a bar up the left-hand side. I think I'm going to just create another... I'll just create an empty object. And I'm not going to give this a sprite. It's going to contain a bunch of other things that have sprites in it. In fact, let me do it now. I'll just create an image. I'm going to call this an alert pip. And I'm going to duplicate it a couple of times. And now this game object, I want it to be on the right-hand side. I think I want it just above the score, so I'm going to say, holding Shift and Alt, and I'm going to say bottom left corner, and then we will just move it. I'm going to switch to scene view so that I can kind of get a better handle on it. What I'm doing now is kind of all a bit abstract. Oh, in fact, I'm changing its height, which I didn't mean to do at all, but it doesn't matter what its height is at the moment. I'm setting this all up in a way that isn't really working because I want to show you how to make it work. I want all of these things to be one above the other. So I'm real bad at selecting which thing I want to adjust at the moment. We could do that this way, where I manually adjust each one, and it's kind of a nightmare. I'm trying to move them far enough apart that you can even see that they're separate objects, but they're actually huge. My point I'm getting towards is that this is a pain in the ass, and there's a bigger problem, which is when we go to a new level, like how many alert levels you can have is going to vary per game level. So some levels will have very sensitive alarms, some levels will let you steal lots of stuff before the alarm goes off, and how is that all going to be laid out? Wouldn't it be great if there was some... Wait, have I already done this? Yeah, I've already done this. There's so much lead in to a thing I've already taught you, which is the vertical layout group. So let's just add one of those. It's a thing that lays things out in a vertical column and saves you from manually adjusting it. God, it barely changed, did it? I think it's all there now. So I don't actually want these alert pips to be big squares, although it doesn't look bad actually. First thing I want to do is move this in a bit. I think, didn't we do 20 for the other one? And these vertical layout groups have a bunch of options that most of which are not really welcome. I don't want it to expand their height, width maybe. I want them to be in the lower center. I want them to be at the bottom, and they've all merged into one because we don't have any spacing, so we'll increase spacing, and so it'll be something like that. But it's also we could control their width, I suppose. Yeah, that works. Okay. That's roughly the kind of thing we're going to do, but I'm going to change these alarm pips, and I don't like that there's 3 copies of them, and when I change one, it's not going to change the others, so I'm going to make it into a prefab just by dragging it into the project folder. And I'll actually delete these 2, and nice thing about vertical layout group is I can just duplicate these and they'll pop up in the right place. Let's open the prefab, and rather than just being a square, I actually made some sprites for this that I'm just going to import. So you can make your own, or you can, I'll include these with the project file that I upload with this episode. So alarm empty and alarm circle. Let's import all of these and I'll delete the ones that aren't right. So I'm just dragging them straight from Explorer into our project folder. I only see 2. Why is that? They're all called, oh no, so full circle and empty circle is the 2 that, and they're completely white, so yeah, these are the ones I don't want, so ignore those, sorry. I'll only include the correct ones in the upload, obviously. It's this alarm circle and alarm circle filled. They look like squares, they're actually not. I've selected them both, and then I'm going to go to texture type, sprite, 2D and UI, and then click apply down here. And now we'll see their true shape. I guess the default import type doesn't support transparency, so that gets lost. We have to set them to that type anyway to be able to use them, which we will now do. So alert pip under image, it's got a thing called source image, and we're going to click the little target there and choose alarm empty. I can't see this at all. I don't know if that's important. I'm not going to worry about that. We're going to go back to this view, and now they're circles at least. I do actually want to change, like them to, you can see they got slightly squished. I'm going to say preserve aspect. and because I'm editing an instance here, I could go into the prefab and do that, but just to save time, it's gone bold because it's an override now. It's something I've done to this instance alone. And if I right click on that and I say apply to prefab, that will apply to all of them. So that's looking all right. How's it looking game? Are they huge? Yeah, they're huge. Let's maybe I'm not going to control their size, and that way I can open the prefab, I can look at the game view. Oh, they've completely vanished now. So their width was 0, which wasn't helping. I want to see this in scene view now because, okay, why aren't they showing a game view at all? That's a little bit weird, isn't it? What happens, let me just check that this is, I'm going to uncheck force expand there, just have it not interfere with them at all. If I just manually size one of these, that works. If I were to, I think it's actually just that changes to these things don't actually get copied to the instances. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to delete the copies that aren't updated and then just duplicate. Because we're not going to be, we're creating these just to get a sense of how it looks. Oh my god, is there only 2 in this view now? What? I think that's just it not refreshing or something. Okay, doesn't matter, because we are going to be creating these when the game is running. These are just a guide. And so I do want to just show what will happen when one of them is full. So instead of the alarm empty sprite, we'll give it the alarm full sprite. And we're going to have to go to scene view because we can't see anything there. So yeah, that's what they'll look like full, and then they'll fill up the bar. I actually want it to fill up from the bottom, which we will deal with later. But all of this is just to kind of lay it out. So this thing, I'm going to call it the alarm panel, and it's going to need some behavior to do all this. So we're going to add component, and I'm just going to call it alarm panel, I guess. Oh no, what about alarm manager? Because it is going to actually handle the alarm, the alert level and everything. So I'll create that. And edit it. And I think I'll just get rid of all this. And we'll give it an awake. I've written the word awake and now I'm going to... Oh, can I just press enter? Yeah, great. That'll do all the boring stuff for me. And I want references to have a reference to this thing. So under references, we'll do a public static alarm manager, call it alarm manager, and save. And then back here, we'll say references dot alarm manager equals this. Now, the way I want it to work is that it's going to have a prefab, so a public game object alert pip prefab. So it has a master copy of what an alert pip looks like, and then when we tell it how many alarm levels we need or alert levels we need, it will create that many of them. And so let's create a public function for that. Public void setup level, and we will want to be supplied with an integer telling us how many alert levels we need. So max alert levels, opens and braces. And so now we are going to do something like for each alert level, create a pip and store them in a list we can access later. So if we want a list, we better create one up here. Public, I'm actually going to make it, it could be a list of game objects, but I think it's slightly easier if we make it a list of images. So if I do list, pointy brackets, image, it's actually going to not know what image is, so I'm going to hit Alt-Enter, and the one we want is unityengine.ui. It's a UI element, and that's a thing that needed to be imported. And I'll just call it alert pips. And when you create a list, remember it's sort of like asking for a notepad. You've got to actually kind of create the notepad. It can't just be empty. So we just say new list of images, like that. So that creates a blank list, and then we'll be able to add to it as we go. So I said for each alert level, we're going to do this as a one of these for I equals 0, I less than max alert levels, I plus plus. So we've done these before, haven't we? Let me just prove that we've done it before. I hope we have. Only once. Okay, so I better recap it. We did a nice little explainer back when we did it. So this nasty, I don't know, I find it to be a bit of a ugly thing because it's really 3 lines of code in one, and they're all out of context. Their significance is completely determined by where they are on that list. So this one said, this is the thing we do first, is first of all declare a new variable called I and set it to 0. And then we're really saying while I is less than max alert levels, keep on increasing I, and each time you do all of this. So let me just check that's what I said before. Declare a variable to keep track of how many iterations we've done, set a limit for how high this variable can go, run this after each time we iterate, increase the iteration count. That's why it's I, for how many times you're going to iterate through this. And so for each one of these, we want to do something like game object new pip equals instantiate. So we're going to make a new one and store a reference to it. We're going to instantiate it from that prefab that we just talked about. And we could just do that, but actually we specifically want it to be a child of us. Like we want it to be nested beneath us. If you remember, that's how we had it set up in this wonderful thing that doesn't appear in game correctly for whatever reason. These alert pips have to be children of the alarm panel. The alarm panel is where the alarm manager lives. When we create it, we want them to be our children, and the way you do that is just to pass in your transform as the second argument. So your transform is, I think you know what it is. And this thing tells it, this is what I want your parent to be, and I want your parent to be at my transform. You will be my child. So we've created a new game object, but like I say, our list is going to be of images. So alert pips dot add new pip, but not just the game object. We actually want its image component. So we'll do get component image and add the image to the list. Is that it? That's more or less it for now. Shall we just I'd like to test this before we go too far, because it'll take a little while to do all of this. So let's just do when we are created, we will set up the level with 3 of these things. And we need a bit more than this before it will be a working element, but this will at least show us it working, show us it displaying, creating these things, test what we've done so far. I could delete these. I am just going to disable them, set them inactive here. They shouldn't get in the way. I don't think they'll do anything. But now that we've got the alarm manager script, I want to give it a reference to the alert pip prefab. I just realized I created a timer here and I didn't actually set it. I'm going to give myself 20 minutes from now. This is 45 hours. That would be too long for an episode, I think. Okay, I have no idea how far in we are. But I do know what I want to get done, and it should all be doable in a reasonable time frame. Yes, I'm giving alarm manager a reference to the alert pip prefab, which is this one. Yeah. So on startup, it's going to set up level 3, and that means it's going to set up a level with 3 potential alert levels, and that means it's going to go through a loop 3 times, creating them and adding them to a list. The fact that they're in a list isn't going to be, we're not using that list yet, but we should see them get created at least. So let's just try running it. Yay, 3 pips. That was easy. Cool. So the next thing I want to do is we want this to reflect the alert level. So we actually need an alert level for one thing. So a public integer for alert level, and a public integer for max alert level. And now when we're told to set up a level with a max alert level, we should actually set that here. Oh, I've used almost the same word here, so that's not good. Let's just call it desired max alert level. That's a pretty unambiguous thing. And it actually doesn't matter which of the 2 variables we use here, because they're the same. And yeah, that will create the list. Then I wanted to show what the current alert level is. So I'm probably just going to cheat and set an alert level so that we'll see it working. But the bit of code that will make it visually work, we're going to need to set those images. That's why I wanted a list of images, because I want to change what sprite they use. So we also need a reference to those sprites. We need a reference to the sprite for a empty pip and a public sprite filled pip. And then where shall this code go? I think we'll just do, we'll have a void update pips. And what that's going to do is go through our list. I think I will say for int I equals 0, I less than. In this case, it's not going to be max alert level. It's going to be how many pips do we have, which is alert pips, the list, dot count, how many of them are there. And then I++, just like before. And inside this loop, for each one of those, I want to say if, let's see, if I is less than the alert level, then alert pips, this current pip, which is alert pips square brackets I, your sprite should be the empty pip. Is that right? No, it should be the filled pip. If you're so like, let's say the alarm level is 2, and we are pip number 2, then we should be filled. The actual numbers are a little bit tricky because the 0th element number 0 in a list is the first one. And when the alert level is 0, you want none of them to be filled, right? So yeah, if the alert level is currently 0, then none of them should be filled, and that'll work because this only happens if I is less than the alert level. But if the alert level is 0, I can't be less than that, can it? Because it starts at 0. And so if that isn't true, we will do the exact same thing, but with an empty pip. Yes. Yeah, so there's one problem I already know about that I expect we'll see. For now, I just want to see this working, so I'm going to say we'll just hard code it. Let's try a longer alarm thing. We'll say we can have 5 pips, and right after we create them, I'm going to just manually set the alert level everything starts with the word alert. Come on. Equals 3, and then I'll say update pips. So that's a sort of simulation of what we'll be doing at runtime, is like someone will set the alert level, then we'll want to update the pips to reflect that. I just want to see them reflecting anything at all at the moment. And we've created these two holes for slots for the sprites. Let's drag those in there. Just in case it isn't immediately intuitive, the difference between an image and a sprite, those words, we might use them interchangeably normally, but the image is a component. It's a component on a game object. It is not a series of pixels on your hard drive. It's not a thing that you could open in Photoshop. Image is the name for the component, and the sprite is the actual image that's a bunch of pixels. It's called source image here, but when you refer to it in code, you call it a sprite. I guess they're trying to sort of give it a friendlier name, although I think it adds to the confusion. And it's a lot like the situation we had with text, where the reference we had to this text element, or this text element rather, that reference is not a word, it's the whole component, and then we have to access a property of that to get at the actual texty bit. Let's see if that worked at all. Hey, it did. Okay, that's the problem I anticipated. It's upside down, kind of. I think intuitively we want it to fill from the bottom, don't we? Like when it's partly full, it should be the lower ones that are filled. There's a surprisingly simple solution to this. One way you could do it is have this loop go in reverse and fill the later ones in first. That hurts my brain. I would much rather do it the simple way, which is right after we create this list. Here's where we create the list, the loop. We just do alert pips dot reverse. Let's just reverse the list after we created it. So the way we create it, puts them in an order where the lowest number is at the top, and we want it the other way around. We want it just after we've done that, flip it. Let me just show that works. Yeah, cool. All right, so let's get rid of this code because that's, let's create a new public void raise alert level. And again, we could, I think I'm just going to not give this one an argument. We could do it like int increase amount, but it's always going to be 1. That is the my idea for this is just everything that can raise the alert level only ever raises it 1. I intentionally want it to be that way so that the player doesn't have to know any extra information about how the consequences of their actions. It should be simple. So all that's going to do is alert level ++, and it will immediately afterwards update the pips, because that's the important part. So that's the thing we can do now. And we already established a reference to this. So let's pick a really easy thing, like actually the antiques, because since we already worked on those and they don't have a lot of else going on, as well as increasing the score, let's do references alarm manager raise alert level. Oh, is that true? I thought we did create that. Oh, we just didn't save. Yeah, that's all. I don't know if my imagination, but it feels like Unity's been way faster at compiling, reacting to things. Oh, why is the 3 still filled? Didn't we get rid of that? Oh, no, we didn't, sorry. Yeah, I remember now. I was going to delete it all, then I thought we should keep it around because we're about to create something that looks very similar, but yeah, there was no actual reason to do that. I don't think we need to run update pips here, so I won't. Wait, did I save that time? Yes. Okay, that's more like it. And when I steal an antique, the alert level goes up. Hey! I want it to go up when I steal a shotgun as well, or when I steal anything. And I also want it to go up when I take out a guard. So, might as well just do all that now since we're thinking about it. Don't want to go into that level. So this whole raise alert level thing, let's actually go back to the antique because we can just take that line of code. And actually, I think, so we already have an alarm system, don't we? Like a really simple one. And it's in Level Manager. And it's a variable called alarm sounded. If I right click on that and then I go to find all references, I'll find the things that currently sound the alarm. I guess that isn't really what I want, is it? Because things like gunshots, I actually do want to sound the alarm immediately, and we'll deal with that later. What I want to work on for now is like the weapon behavior when that is picked up. This be picked up by player thing, that should raise the alert level. So that was easy. And then how does using a guard work? It's in guard behavior. It's great. Everything I jump to, it's taking me to the exact bit of code I need. I guess because it's the last thing I worked on. When we do a knockout attempt on a guard, if it worked, then we should raise the alert level. And that's it for these incremental raises. Let's check it works. Stealing an antique. Stealing a shotgun went up by 1. And now blowing him up also went up by 1. Great. And now I want... This thing doesn't do anything yet. That's one criticism of the system, if you really want to be harsh on it. It doesn't actually do anything. It raises a number that changes some symbols but doesn't ever relate to the game. And I think we should actually create... so there is a concept inherent to this that, like, when the alert pips are full, the alarm, that means the alarm has gone off. So let's actually write a thing that is a public bool is a true or false. It's actually, rather than being a variable, it's going to be a function now, called alarm has sounded. And we don't need any arguments. All we're going to do is return whether or not the alert level is greater than or equal to the max alert level. So is the alarm bar full, basically. And anywhere that we used to check whether the alarm has sounded, we now want to replace with this. So I will go back to Level Manager, right click on alarm has sounded, find all references, and we get things like the enemy spawner wants to know if the alarm sounded. So let's replace, it will go to Alarm Manager, and then this new function name, alarm has sounded. I'm going to copy all of that because we'll need to paste it in a couple of different places. What's next? Guard behavior wants to know, oh yeah, like the knockout attempt shouldn't work if the alarm's gone off already. So we'll do that. Hang on, I missed out a false. We do need the false. So if the alarm is sounded as false, then we're allowed to knock them out. What is this? This is actually the same thing, and it's just to tell them whether they're alerted, whether they know where the player is. In our game, as soon as the alarm goes off, guards know exactly where you are. This one is actually trying to set the alarm has sounded, and we don't have a function for that yet, so I'm going to come back to this. Level Manager itself, this right now at the start, Level Manager's start event is the start of the level, so it runs again each time a level is started. So actually I think this is where we want to do references.alarm manager setup level, and we'll pass in, I think we will pass in 3 for now. So now, rather than Alarm Manager sort of handling it itself, Level Manager is going to tell the Alarm Manager to set up a level and what alarm level it wants. And so this start thing, I think I'll delete our only line of code in there. And then the last one in Weapon Manager is another one where it's trying to sound the alarm instantly. So we've got rid of all those, all the times that anyone is checking where the alarm is sounded. They're all now looking at the Alarm Manager for that, which is great. And let's give us this function that we obviously need, where separately from raising alert levels, we need actually like sound the alarm now. Public void sound the alarm. And that is going to set the alert level to the max alert level, no matter what it was before. And it's going to update pips afterwards, because anytime we change the alert level, we should update the pips. Yes, that all looks good to me. So I wonder if I can refresh that window. I'm always looking for this function. I think it exists, but I don't entirely know how to find it. I'm just going to right click and say find all references again, just to make that window update. So now there's only 2 left, and they're both the ones where we just want the alarm to sound. So alarm manager dot sound the alarm. And guard behavior. This one for the guards is when they see you. So they're allowed to set off the alarm just, you know, telepathically. And that should be everything. So now when the level starts, it's going to set a max alert level of 3. All these things we've already proved will raise the alert level. Everything in the game's concept of whether the alarm is sounded or not is going to be a reference to the alarm manager, whether it says the alert level is full yet, and if anything wants to sound the alarm instantly, like firing a gun, which should, it can do that. So let's test stealing stuff first. Yeah, the guard went red, and enemies should start pouring out. That's alarm. Now let's test instant alarms. If I have an Uzi and I fire it, that should send it off immediately. It does, and the alert pips fill, which is cool. And what's the last one? It's guards seeing us is the last one that should trigger this. So also they should shoot us, and also sets off the alarm. Awesome. That's a little bit like a game now. There's like, you know, decisions to make and a threat. There is more I want to do here. Let me just remind myself what else there is and how we're doing on time. My completely fake limit is almost up. But what I want to do is have some visual effects for this and some a sound. I would like there to be an actual alarm sound. So the idea I had was I want the lighting to change. When the alarm's gone off, it should be a much bigger moment than it is right now. It's just a bar filling. Before this, we didn't even have any visual feedback at all, except the guards' vision cones. And those vision cones are less relevant once they've already seen you. And I was looking at all these plinths and thinking, oh, those already have like a nice, calm, pleasant gold light. When the alarm goes off, I think they should change. And so what I want to do is, this is the light that they currently have. I'm going to duplicate it. And when the alarm is on, I'm going to change the color of this new light to like bright red. And I want to see what this looks like, so I'm going to disable the old light for now to see how red our new light is. It's quite red, but let's increase the intensity a lot. That's great. And then increase the range as well, because this is not just telling us the plinth is alarmed. It's like going to change the whole level. Let's just see what the too strong version is. That's too strong. But yeah, I do like it being super intense, and maybe with the intensity you can go even higher. Oh wow, that's crazy. But actually, I really like how the core of it is like yellow with intensity. This definitely looks like an alarmed level, doesn't it? So the idea is I just want a script that's going to turn off the normal light and turn on the other light. You could do a script, you could have like a light manager, and it could store these color and intensity values and switch them in, but it's like stuff like that I think is overcomplicating the issue. Really, when this is a matter of taste and it's a matter of aesthetics and stuff, you're going to want to tweak this loads of times. And I find it best just to have 2 different game objects. Here's the non-alarm version, and here's the alarm version, and we just turn one off and turn the other one on. Don't try and modify the thing. And I especially want to do it here because I think this will be a common thing. This game is very much about the alarm. There might be loads of different things where you just want to turn something off and turn something on when the alarm goes off. So I'm going to add a component to the plinth called alarm switcher. And it's just going to be a script that it knows about the alarm, and when the alarm is sounded, it's going to turn one game object off and turn another one on. So, no, I don't want to add a new one. I want to edit the one I just created. That's my time warning. I will keep update, but I want a public game object unalarmed object and a public game object alarmed object. And all I want to do is check if first we'll say if unalarmed object is active in hierarchy, i.e. this one, the non-alarmed version hasn't been disabled yet. Is that just a variable? I guess it is. And the alarm, references.alarmmanager.alarm has sounded. Let's close this so we get a little more space. So if the unalarmed version is on right now and the alarm has sounded, then that's not right. We've got to do something. We've got to say unalarmed object set active false, and alarmed object set active true. Now we could have an equivalent to this that does the opposite, where the alarm turns off and then we switch them back, but actually in our game we have no way of turning the alarm off, so we don't need that. And I think that's all that needs. So it's going to take the point light. I'll actually name these because it will be helpful. Normal light to check we get it the right way around, and this one is alarm light. I've called it loot, but we'll live with that. No, we won't. We'll fix it. We'll fix it. And obviously in the default version we actually don't want it this way around, we want it the other way around. Now let's see how that feels when we set something off. There we go. That's an alarm. You definitely can't miss the state change now. And so the last thing to do is to make it make a noise. And I'm going to do this on the canvas. This is a little bit weird. I haven't done this in my own games yet. It's never. We usually in my main game we have like a particular thing in the level that generates sounds. We just want something that works right now, and the quickest, easiest way to do it is to add a component to our alarm manager. Hang on, sorry, we are editing an instance right now. We've got to be careful about that. Go to Canvas, go to Open Prefab, get back to the alarm manager, and we're going to add an audio source to it. And I want an audio clip. Here's one I prepared earlier. This is from, let's get the assets box up and find Lolks alarm long. I'm just going to drag that into our project folder. And as soon as I do that, I'm also going to track down our credits. Do we have a prefab for credits? There's a credits menu. Oh yeah, here it is. And credits text. So we're going to add the alarm sound. Lolks is their name. And back to the alarm panel. It's got an audio source. I'm just going to click that little target and have it associated with that Lolks thing. I'm just going to jump ahead and set the volume to a bit less than half. Max volume is a bit much, I happen to know. The settings on this audio source, play on awake. No, we don't want it to play right away, do we? Loop, yes, we do want it to loop. And then in Alarm Manager, we will just public audio source alarm sound. I think I will just set it in code, just say alarm sound equals get component audio source, because it's on the same object as us, so we can just get the reference that way. And then I think we don't actually have an update. I think I'm going to create an update. If I just type the word update, I think that'll work. Yep. And what I want to say is if alarm has sounded and the alarm sound is playing, is false, is not playing, then alarm sound dot play. And if alarm, vice versa basically, if alarm sounded is false and the alarm sound dot is playing, then alarm sound dot stop, mate, don't. I did just say that we'll never have a way of turning the alarm off, as far as I know, but looping sounds, there are so many bugs with looping sounds, like you really just want to be checking all the time, is this sound currently playing? And should it be? Because if it isn't, if it shouldn't be, then for God's sake, stop it. It's very annoying when this thing gets stuck playing over and over, especially an alarm sound. It's literally like the whole point of the sound is to be stressful and intrusive. Let's see if that works. And if it does, we're done. All right, steal an antique, steal an Uzi, throw a gun. There it is. That's alarming. God, the Uzi's terrible, isn't it? We will make better weapons next time. All right, I'm not gonna. To be honest, I think even 50% might be a bit loud for that. I'm gonna turn it down even further to like 30%. But yeah, that's it. We are done. And I think this is so close to a game now. You know, there's things to care about and things to pick up and stuff. I think next time we should either look into generating levels, because I don't want to make a bunch. Now that we have plinths and we're manually placing things and they've got names and everything, I don't want to be manually making a bunch of levels, then later scrap them all to make a level generator. So level generator would be a good thing to do next. Or the other thing is like level to level progress, like what do you take to the next level? That's obviously something we need to figure out anyway. Both in terms of like which bits of does the canvas come with us? Does the level manager come with us, or is it recreated? But also just like, does your score come with you? I think probably yes. Persistent stuff. I think some of the things you can pick up should be persistent upgrades. Like you get weapons for this level, but then you could also get upgrades like some armor that's going to protect you, or some rate of fire upgrade, something like that. But yeah, that's a job for next time.